So this next passage on 122 is focusing on the function of the steamboat, right? And what that actually means for Marlowe. So we'll just start reading from the bottom here. I did not see the real significance of that wreck at once. I fancy I see it now, but I am not sure, not at all. Certainly the affair was too stupid when I think of it to be altogether natural. Still, but at the moment it presented itself simply as a confounded nuisance. The steamer was sunk. They had started 2 days before in a sudden hurry up the river with the manager on board, in charge of some volunteer skipper, and before they had been out 3 hours, they tore the bottom out of her on stones, and she sank near the south bank. I asked myself what I was to do there now my boat was lost. As a matter of fact, I had plenty to do in fishing my command out of the river. I had to set about it the very next day. That, and the repairs when I brought the pieces to the station, took some months. So, this part of it, this part of the text, is focusing on what he actually had to do, right? And we see this later on when he's actually in the steamboat, and the steamboat is a physical refuge from the surrounding forest. This part here reinforces why the steamboat was like a psychological refuge for him. Okay? The steamboat provided work. Okay? If you have a look at this, all right? I had plenty to do, and it took some months. Right? It kept his mind preoccupied. It meant that he was doing something which was structured, which was ordered, and that meant that he wasn't left to his own devices, as he talks about later. He wasn't left to his own thoughts. He wasn't left to explore his own inner darkness. And because of that, he didn't slip or he didn't fall in the way that Kurtz did. He wasn't even falling in the way that some of the other pilgrims were. The ones who had nothing better to do than just to hold a rifle at their hip and shoot wildly into the forest. He doesn't have that problem because he's got this to do, right? So when he says right at the start of the passage, I did not see the real significance of that wreck at once. I fancy I see it now. That's what he's talking about. He understands, this part here, he understands now why it was so significant. All right, so make a note of that, please. All right? This understanding only comes from having witnessed what happens when you don't have something to do. All right? Okay. And you can make a note also about the fact that it's psychological refuge for Marlowe against the darkness. Right, so that's a brief passage on the steamboat and what it represents.